Hi there, aspiring guitarists. Today in Guitar Talk, I want to talk about being practical with your practice. Practical, practice. Funny how those kind of tie together. Um, you know, this is my phone. I have a very big computer background, all the way to when I was the chief system operator for PC World Online Magazine, back before the World Wide Web, when it was the AOL forums, CompuServe, Delphi, Prodigy, things like that. So I'm no stranger to computers. Um, I've brought businesses into the online and computer world, and on and on and on. But sometimes I would look at a client and they would want to spend a lot of money to do something with their business, and I would tell them, okay, we can do that, but you really only need a pencil. I mean, you need a pencil, and you need a ledger book, maybe a very basic spreadsheet. And I don't know what was on their mind. Some of them, I don't know. It seemed like they needed to tell their buddies at the next cocktail party that they had an elaborate computer system. Now, I'm not trying to offend you by saying that. Some of them had a real need, inventories, things like that. But I once took a retailer and brought him practically out of a cash register and a cigar box into a very sophisticated, structured query language, uh, point of sale software that we tweaked, made it match a percent off of your online a charge account if you paid a third of your bill. Those of you in computers knows about rounding a third and 33.33333, but we worked it out. But the sad part about this is he looked at me one day and he said, yeah, but it's not giving me the information I need. And I told him, I said, yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I've even got our emails where I told you, if you don't shut down your store and take inventory of what you've got and get it in the system, where when you sell it at the register, the only thing you're ever going to get is once that inventory, which you had an enormous amount, goes away and you finally have caught up with new purchases, then you'll find out some of the things you want to know. Practicality. Um, you know, my wife and I got on Kindle almost immediately when it came out. Almost immediately. But she and I both still love a book. There's just something about holding the book. Now, don't get me wrong. There's things I like. I've got a Kindle Scribe. I've got a Paperwhite. I've got this. Different tools for different needs make sense when you can afford to do that. If I'm stuck at a doctor's waiting room, I don't mind reading a little bit of a book on Kindle. I'd prefer a book. That's not always the case. It's not. But I know I grew up in an analog that was moving to a digital world. And I was part of that era where we actually took it into the digital world. I know people talk about old timey modems to connect to the internet, and the sound it made as it went through the phone. And they'll say, well, I had a 56K modem. Well, folks, I had a 300 baud modem. It took a while to connect. So, what's my point in all this? Being practical. Um, Are you really? You might. Maybe you've been. There are times that I know. Here's one of the problems that I have with a computer. I'm in the middle of something, and then I got to stop and switch over. I got to multitask, which some people think that's a godsend. Some people think that was the start of their nightmare of not being able to get something done because they were constantly sidetracked. So you're sitting down and you fire up one of your trusty guitar practice apps, and right in the middle of the app you get a phone call. And here comes your friend, and here comes your family, and here comes this, and here comes that, and here comes the other, and it's almost unbelievable. Now, I know a lot of guitar chords. I'm 64 years old, about to turn 65, and I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old. And I gotta tell you, we didn't have no digital, but we had chord charts. We had Mel Bay books, Hal Leonard, things like that. And I gotta tell you, if I want to experiment with a chord, I'm going from the chord chart now. There's all kinds of them. I've got some noisy cleanse sliding things that are fantastic too. All those books over there I've used to teach my grandkids and to remind myself of things I forgot and want to learn again. Here's a guitar chord progression chart, which also deals with a 1-4-5, and then it gets into the minor chords, and there's additional chords, and there's all kind of ways to do this. But I'm telling you, in your guitar practice, that's the reason so many instructors will tell you, go find a place to practice. Well, what is practice? Practice could be playing a song. It could be. But it could be doing scales. It could be trying to get a chord to ring out correct. It could be triads. It could be all kind of things. But it's dedicated to the task of practice. Now, that is a very, very nice noisy clan tripod that I've got my Strum and Sing. I've got it turned to Cat Stevens, Father and Son. I pretty much know it by heart. There's a lot of songs I know by heart simply because I've played it a lot. Yeah, I know that if something's in the key of G, I'm probably going to see a C and a D and an A minor. I learned those things through getting tidbits of theory and help along the way. But my point of this video is, something is, I would say investing in a chord chart. Now, a book, sometimes you got to flip the pages, but this is something you can just lay down while you play the guitar. Okay, well, it's telling me to go from C to F to G7. Well, let me try that. You didn't have to go dig something up. I actually have a friend of mine that also takes care of my property maintenance. I've got over an acre, and I'm still pretty strong, but there's some things I can't do anymore. I'm not real good at getting up on a ladder, and I don't want to. I've lost, sadly, many friends that got up on a ladder when they should have turned that over to somebody younger or something else. That's beside the point. But we've even traded some work for guitars. Well, he started out when he was young with nothing but a chord book. And he just kept teaching himself chords. And then eventually he'd get a songbook. He would do one of the biggest things that I've always told people to do. He played with other people. And we can't all do that. So, a moment of gratitude to the good Lord for YouTube. But as I've said in the past, YouTube can take you down a rabbit hole if you don't have something structured. I've said this so many times. Learn your chords. Come on, you got to learn chords. If you're going to advance, do well, have fun, get connected to your guard, it starts with chords. What is a chord? 3 notes. What's a triad? Try 3. What are the notes that make up a chord? What is the what is the musical alphabet? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Back to A, it repeats. What is a diatonic, a chromatic? How many tones are there? How many notes? How many Western music uses how many note scale? Blah blah, on and on and on and on. And you may think, I can always find peace, always, in a guitar chord. I truly can. And now I'm going to go somewhere else. I have some great guitars. Right in front of me is a Gibson LOO 12 fret. It's one of my favorite guitars. LOOs, most people associate it's a 14th fret. I'm a fingerstyle picker. I love my LOO. But I'm going to tell you one of my favorite practice guitars is this Epiphone Little Tex. It is an acoustic electric. Has no volume tone controls on it, but that's all right. I do have a little LR Baggs foot pedal, about the only foot pedal I have that I use if I want to amplify it, but it's got a beautiful tone. That was an F chord. I realize everybody wants to run out and get the best guitar they can. More power to you. It's your money, but I can tell you, I can take this short scale travel size guitar here against my Hummingbird, Martin, Taylor, another Martin, a Larrivee, an Ovation, this, that, the other that I love to play. And if you can think about the F chord, how hard it is to learn that F chord, but you'll learn it. Well, I can play an F chord easier on some guitars than other guitars. And I can play an F chord on any guitar. I've been doing this long enough. But ask yourself, can you finger pick an F chord? To where you can hear each note? Sometimes the guitar that fits your hand and it's the easiest to play, and I'm even going to give the argument against this, is a practical use of getting better at guitar. And I absolutely grind into that and go, but wait a minute, that's not the one I'm going to use for what I'm going to do. Well, what are you going to do? It always takes me a minute to transition from a guitar I'm playing to another guitar. And I've been in situations where I've had two strings break at one time, and I wasn't going to fool with that, just grab another guitar. You know, when I was in a gigging, a folk group set or something like that. And you do have to make a transition, even if it's the same model guitar, things may be different. I'm not talking about tone either. I'm talking about playability and things like that. So, it's like getting in a car. I know how to drive a car. I know how to drive a stick shift. I know how to drive a split stick shift on a truck and pull it up and get into the high gears and go down in the low gears and all that stuff. Because I was exposed to that in the Air Force and trucking and different things I did. But there comes a point where you got to ask yourself, am I really going to use my little iPhone or Android phone to truly practice? Am I? And if I'm using that phone to go through a song and look at the chords, and I don't know what a chord is, you know so many of them, they don't even show the chord, or it's too darn small to see. But if I have something as practical as guitar chords laying in front of me, well, when I'm feeling good and strumming two or three chords that I know and I know what's coming, and I see that one coming, I go, oh God, what is that? I can glance and go, okay, I'm good. That's cheating. That's cheating. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard about learning a guitar. That's cheating. My wife and I, we cycle a lot. We do some gravel cycling. I do a little bit of off-road cycling, but we mostly road cycle. And we've gotten to an age where, oh, and don't get me wrong, we've ridden in traffic safely. We don't get on roads where it's just stupid. I realize that's subjective too, and I realize this could start a whole plethora of discussion of people that hate bikes, love bikes. Yeah, but you ought to do this. Yeah, but it's legal. Blah 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 blah. My point is, we've reached a point where, because of my knee, I thought I was going to have to give up cycling. 2016, I blew out my knee, and I said I never say never. Yeah, most of the time, but I said I'd never get an e-bike, but I didn't want to give up biking, so I got an e-bike. My wife hung on to her Specialized Dulce for a long time till finally she was like, I'm gonna get one too. These hills around Birmingham, we're at the foothill of the Appalachians. We're in our 60s now, so we got an e-bike. I can't tell you the people that ride up beside me don't know me. You're cheating. Did you buy this bike? Well, no. Have a good day. I'm not even going to go there. It's my bike. It's my biking journey, and it's my guitar journey. And I do things that help me to enjoy my journey. I can tell you this. I can make beautiful music with this Epiphone that I showed you, the Little Tex, or with the Gibson L00, or with that Hummingbird right there, or with the Martin, or with the Ovation, or the Godin, but that's up to me. And I do things that are practical. When I start off in the morning, I usually get up no later than 5 a.m. every single morning. I have a series of things I do to help my wife, who's still going to work. Got to take care of litter boxes, get her lunch. And you may go, oh, I don't care what you think. It's my wife. I love her. I'm going to help her go work. She helped me for decades. So I have my things I do, and then I go out in the property and I work and pick up sticks. We have tons of trees and cut grass and weed eat and blah 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 and on and on and on and on and on. But when I get up in the morning, I also spend some time with my guitars. This is before my fingers are hurting. This is before I've stretched or had to take a hoe and wore my shoulder out. Thank the good Lord that I'm still moving. I was told 6 years ago that I had to have a shoulder replacement. I'd never use it again. Well, I've still got the same shoulder, and I am not your doctor. I worked this out with my doctor. I went through physical therapy and other things. I had frozen shoulder, and he was like, well, you can do nothing, and it will eventually break loose, or you can start moving it and working it. And I chose to move it and work it, and it was hard, but I got my shoulder back. But I still hurt when I reach over a big dreadnought if I've used my shoulder earlier in the day. So there's some guitars that I play in the morning, and then when I don't want to reach over a giant guitar, I have these little ones that I can hug in tight that I play before I go to bed. But my point always gets back to being practical. If you've got buddies counting on you to play in a band, where you can't let them down, and you got to do this, and you got to do what you got to do. I'm going to enjoy my guitar. I thank God every day that I got through this Dupuytren contracture that prevented me from playing for 5 years, and I can play again. But I'm also practical. And I try to do things that help me to advance and grow. And to do the thing I told people to do that got more views than any I've got well over 100 videos. But the one that got more views than anything was where I told them to do this one thing every day. And I put up on the board, which behind the door here, I've got a big easel. PASSED. Past. Play a simple song every day. Now, I could have said practice the C major scale, do this, go to the A minor pentatonic, do that, triangle, blah, blah, blah. I could have done all kind of things. It's something to do every single day. But the reason I said that to do every day was the enjoyment of guitar and having a great guitar journey, a great reading journey, a great biking journey, a great discus throwing journey, or I don't know, whatever you're into, having a great weekend with the family over, or visiting a friend, or whatever. Sometimes practicality supersedes the greatest guitar that money can buy. I like to think that I can make any guitar sound good if I just put enough heart into it. I realize that's debatable, and there's some guitars that might be a lost cause. So, but it is about what inspires you in the heart. So I hope you have a blessed guitar journey, and most of all, and I always mean it, happy picking.